Welcome back to KOAN, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM, The Joe Miller Show, and I have on the air with me Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the world's toughest sheriff. Sheriff Joe, thank you for being with us.
Good talking to you again, Joe.
Sheriff Joe, you and I go back a little bit. We did the Three Joes event. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. You remember that, California?
Oh, San Francisco was raining.
Yeah. And then I had the honor of seeing you again a couple of weeks ago in Maricopa County. So you're in the news all the time, and I've got the feeling that you're in the news all the time because you're always standing for what's right. There's very little that I've heard from you that I disagree with. But what's this about the big Times Square billboard? I saw your face on Times Square the other day.
Well, a friend of mine owns that. I think it's the third largest in the country. I think it was great. We put it up during Super Bowl to invite everybody here, that the weather is great. But I'm wondering if the mayor of New York, or my friend the Reverend down there, was looking at my picture. They don't seem to like me. They have problems with their police department. So I was hoping they would see me up there, especially the Reverend that who I'm talking about, that I had here.
Al Sharpton?
I had him here.
So did Al Sharpton take you? Did he take you up on your offer?
No, that was over the training on shooting. This is a while back when he led thousands of people against me, and I invited him to my office in private. He came up, had a nice little talk, and then, of course, we both went on a national TV blasting each other. But I'd like to get him back here, but he's not going to come. He doesn't have the courage to come down here. So
tell me about Al Sharpton. I mean, what do you think makes that guy tick?
Well, I had that long talk with him. You always become suspicious whether he's doing it for money, which he probably is. He seems to have the ear of the president. He seems to have a type of background that might be questionable. But you got to give him credit. He's been able to survive all these years with his agenda, propaganda.
That Tawana Brawley thing happened while I was at West Point. I was a cadet there, and it just amazes me that somebody could survive that. I mean, he was the guy that was really fomenting all that popular discontent over that whole series of lies, and then got sued over it. And I guess the creditors are still chasing him over that.
Yep, and the president likes to have him at the White House. I wish he would invite me to the White House, have a few beers, light up a stogie, and play a little basketball. But I don't think I'm his favorite guy these days. So,
any contact between you and the president recently at all?
No. In fact, I met him here 3 years ago in the basement of the ASU University. We just had a brief meeting. The only thing I asked him was, how come you call Vice President Joe Biden Sheriff Joe? I'm the only Sheriff Joe around here. He looked at me like I was nuts. But then, of course, right after that, I started a birth certificate investigation. And so I'm not his favorite guy, and I just sued him December 22nd with Larry Klayman on the immigration releasing 5 million people and the effect it has on me. So the judge dumped it. We knew that would happen, but now he filed with the appellate court. So let's see what happens on that issue.
Well, let's hope. And the birth certificate issue, I've actually spoken about it before, even as a candidate, in part because, when I ran for office back in 2010 and the multi-million-dollar smear campaign came, I made a comment routinely that people in Alaska knew more about me than they even had a scintilla of with the president. I mean, the fact that he spent the millions that he spent, for example, to protect his college records, the fact that we know that his select service registration card that's been published is a forgery. I mean, there's really no dispute on that, right?
We're not pushing that. We're just did our job looking to see if that was a fake and forged document like you do with everybody else. The Tea Party came to visit me. 200 asked me to look into it, so I had to make a big decision. My constituents that asked me to do things, I like to do it. So I looked at it with my volunteer posse with how we know taxpayers' money. and had a couple of press conferences, and of course they went after my chief investigator and me, the media, and everybody else. But we're still working on it. I want to make sure, but when you have law enforcement, Joe, you always like to know who did it. You can show a crime has been committed, but you like to know who did it. So we had some angles on that, but nothing really materialized. But we're still working on enhancing the proof of that birth certificate.
Well, I appreciate all your efforts in that regard. Scott Walker, I don't know whether you heard about this recently or not, but he's taking some heat now. He hasn't put his hat in the ring for president yet, but he's kind of exploring it. And one of the criticisms that already the left is targeting him with is, well, what happened to you during your last semester last year of school? He apparently didn't graduate from college and left his last semester. And you talk about a double standard. I mean, here you've got a media attacking Scott Walker because they don't know why he left school the last year, and yet they don't lift a finger on President Obama.
Well, I understand that. It's very difficult to find out the background. I don't think he would qualify to be hired in our office when you get right down to it. But, Joe, nobody wants to touch it. It's amazing. I've been in the federal law enforcement field for, 30 years. Now, sheriff for 22, I've never seen everybody avoid a potential crime. So a little strange what's going on in our country.
It is. And any time that you stand up and you say, hey, look, I'm going to stand for what's right, you end up being the target on it. And the stand that you've taken, not just on that issue, but also on illegal aliens and the other issues that you're facing, are admirable. Now, I also read recently in the news, Sheriff Joe, that you just recently bought 700 body cams. What's that all about?
Well, I'm not going to get into a federal judge or courts, but they said we have to have, car cameras in a car. I was against the body cams. I'm an old-fashioned guy, Joe. When I been in law enforcement as a cop and everything else, you used to go to court, testify. Everybody believed you, but now you have to have audio and video, and nobody believes you. So philosophically, I'm sort of against it, but now I talk to some of my people. Now they seem to like it when we do install the cameras. And we're in a high-tech society, so everybody's taking my picture and our pictures anyway. What's the difference? You can't go to the toilet without someone taking your pictures with these cameras. So, okay, so what's wrong then using these cameras when you stop someone?
Right. You see all these pictures of protesters. Everybody has a cell phone in their hand, holding it up, recording. So it's always a good policy to assume that you're being recorded or watched, or a combination of the two. And, of course, the NSA is probably watching all of us. So on that note, it looks like you had somebody else watching you the other day. There was a guy arrested for apparently making a death threat against you. When I read that story, I wondered if he had the opportunity to experience the rehabilitation that you've offered in your jails relating to pets. You've got a group of pets there in the jail, right?
Yeah, that guy, I happened to be in San Diego on another, to talk to a large animal group, and this guy was we got the information, and the LAPD arrested him. So he's in that jail down in Los Angeles right now. But I just had another guy convicted, got 7 years for sending me a bomb. So these threats, I get them all the time. But if they want to get you, they're going to get you. You know that, Joe. So I have some security now. I'm not happy with it, but when I ran for sheriff, I made my own bed, became very active. Controversial. The change brings enemies, just like you. You're not the enemy, but you understand what I'm saying. But we can't surrender.
Absolutely.
We have to keep fighting for our country and do the best we can. As far as the dogs, I put dogs in the jail, kicked out all the inmates 10 years ago, threw them in the hot tents. So I have room for those dogs that have been abused. I'm very tough on animal cruelty. We lock people up that abuse animals, so I need a place to put the animals. So I have a nice air-conditioned jail. They all have their own cell. I don't double bunk dogs. I double bunk inmates. So I just the inmates are all mad at me now. 4 months ago, I took away all their meat, so they're all vegetarians. So that ought to make them healthy, and that's the way it is. I run the kitchen around here.
So, are you personally a vegetarian, or just the inmates?
Well, you open the door on something. I don't want to say it, but I'm going to get a movie star down here, and maybe see what I should do as I publicize our menu, vegetarian menu. So I have to see that. I could lose some weight. You know that.
Well, I could too. In fact, I'm hitting the gym now. The radio life is making me a little bit sedentary. But in any event, I appreciate everything that you're doing. Do you still have the tent gels? Are they still up?
Oh, yeah. 21 years. Still there.
And how did the sign on Times Square work and the advertising that you did? Did you keep the lawlessness down during the Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying because of that, but it was good, and we had a great Super Bowl and not that much crime.
Well, Sheriff Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to inform Alaskans about what you're doing down in Maricopa County. Keep up the good work. We always look to you for direction on the way we ought to go on a number of different issues, and you got a bunch of supporters up here in the great land. God bless you in what you're doing.
And don't surrender. Thank you.
I won't do it. Neither should you.
Okay. Thank you.